The hearing of the subcommittees will come to order, and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you. I want to welcome everyone and thank them for joining us this afternoon, and particularly to our many friends who are testifying today, and to others whom I see throughout this room who have been dogged in their determination to bring peace and justice and reconciliation to Northern Ireland. Today we will inquire into the Northern Ireland peace process, particularly the aspect of it which is called dealing with the past. Sadly, much of what we will hear about amounts to failures to deal with the past, as is the rejection of the recent proposal by Dr. Richard Haass. Hopefully that will turn around, but it is at this point not agreed to. Dr. Haass served as chair of the panel of parties in the Northern Ireland Executive. That is, he was asked to assist in brokering an agreement to move the peace process forward. In that capacity, Dr. Haass spent months consulting and formulating a proposal. In the end, the proposal was not accepted by all of the parties, though it clarified where progress can be made and where sticking points remain, and it is a blueprint for the future. One of the most important questions that Dr. Haass and the parties dealt with is what will be done with the Historical Inquiries Team and the Police Ombudsman of Northern Ireland, two key bodies established by the Good Friday Agreement to investigate unsolved murders. We will discuss the Dr. Haass's proposal to replace the HET and the PONI with an Historical Investigations Unit, and Baroness O'Loan suggested to replace them with a rather different investigative commission. It parallels, but there may be some differences during this hearing. For now, I want to underline this. Both agree that the status quo of dealing with the troubles and the crimes that were committed should be replaced. Likewise, the parties in Northern Ireland Executive reportedly agreed with this aspect of Dr. Haass's proposal. So the agreement is broad on this point. It's time to move to a better system. As Dr. Haass's proposal states, the multiplicity of institutions and vehicles for justice in respect of conflict-related incidents, however, creates confusion and places enormous burdens on the police. The facts alone tell the story of the more than 3,000 troubles-related deaths that occurred between 1968 and 1998. The HET has yet to review some 600 cases involving 800 deaths. Dr. Haass's proposed Historical Investigations Unit has much to say for it by establishing a single unit with full investigative power to eliminate the overlaps, the contradictions, and waste of resources in the mandates of the two other entities. Likewise, the suggestion of Baroness O'Loan, who served very successfully as police ombudsman from 2000 to 2007, and on several occasions actually came here and testified very bravely. Well, her idea for an investigative commission that will be, quote, totally independent to investigate fully empowered and fully resourced body with a remit to examine any troubles-related cases involving deaths up to 2006. Lady O'Loan's proposal emphasizes the need for the unimpeachability of independent agency in order to win the trust of both communities. In any case, Dr. Haass's proposal remains extremely important on all points. Those involved most closely in the peace process have expressed their confidence that it accurately reflects the current divisions and positions of the parties and will likely serve as an important basis for future discussions. And I think for those who think everything is done and finished and can close the page on Northern Ireland, really don't know the situation on the ground. And I think that's why we are having this hearing today, and that's why I think these important recommendations need to be taken very seriously all over the world, including in the United States. We will also hear today about the Finucane case and the British Military Reaction Force. These aspects of dealing with the past were not covered by Dr. Haass's proposal to the Northern Ireland political parties because they deal with matters that are the responsibility of the British government. First, the British government's failure to conduct the promised inquiry into collusion in the 1989 murder of Patrick Finucane remains an open sore. The British government has a solemn obligation to initiate a full independent public judicial inquiry that was agreed to as part of the overall peace settlement in Northern Ireland during the Weston Park negotiations. This obligation, which was undertaken by both governments as part of the Belfast Agreement, one of the outstanding diplomatic achievements of recent decades, was an extremely serious undertaking. In order for the peace process to move forward, the British government must honor it. While Prime Minister Cameron has admitted to, quote, shocking levels of collusion between the state and loyalist paramilitaries in the murder of Patrick Finucane, and apologized to the Finucane family for it, this does not substitute for a full exposition of the facts behind the British state's involvement in the murder. Rather, the steady increase in the amount of evidence being revealed publicly that the British state colluded with the killers has made honoring that commitment more important than ever. The British government committed to implement the recommendation of a judge of international standing on 6 inquiry cases in 2004. Judge Peter Corey, who we've had at 2 of my hearings in the past, very eminent former justice of the Supreme Court in Canada, recommended a public inquiry into the case of Patrick Finucane. To date, it remains the only case investigated where the recommendation has not been honored, a situation that is deeply unsatisfactory for many reasons, not the least of which it is evidently the one that the British government is most culpable. Conversely, it is also the case in which, until the Prime Minister's announcement in December of 2012, there has been the greatest level of sustained official denial by various state agencies. The many previous denials in time that has passed has drained public confidence in parts of the peace process and diminished respect for the rule of law in Northern Ireland. It must be said that there are those who oppose the peace process, and their opposition is dangerous. The failure to address the case of Finucane in the manner proposed by the British government provides a readily available propaganda tool for those to further their own ends. Secondly, there is the matter of killings committed by the British Army's Military Reaction Force. From approximately 1971 to 1973, the British Army ran an undercover unit of approximately 40 soldiers who operated out of uniform and in unmarked cars, mostly around Belfast. On November 21st of 2013, the BBC program Panorama aired a documentary in which former members of the MRF broke silence on aspects of the unit's operations, confirming that many had suspected what many had suspected for a long time. The BBC reported that, quote, "We've investigated the unit and discovered evidence that this branch of the British state sometimes shot unarmed civilians." The BBC spoke to 7 former members of the MRF, and though the men were careful not to incriminate themselves or each other in specific killings, they made plain that the Independent fairly characterized the report, and I quote, "The unit would carry out drive-by shootings against unarmed people on the street without any independent evidence that they were part of the IRA." As one of the former members admitted to the BBC, "We are not there to act like an Army unit. We were there to act like a terror group," quote, close quote. Now the onus is on the British government to investigate and punish these crimes. The British Ministry of Defence has said that it has referred the matter to the police for investigation. Unfortunately, the BBC reported that, quote, "These soldiers were undercover and that they did not have, and they have been airbrushed from the official record." I'd like to now turn to my friend and colleague, Mr. Keating, for any opening comment he might have.